We're not going to be doing any gaming whatsoever for now, but we're going to be discussing Aerther Revolt. First and foremost, loving the symbol from Kaladash's set. This is going to be the second set. Until then, we will be seeing further sets along the line in 2017. This set in particular is going to be out on the market on the 21st of this month, January. So that means in 2 weeks' time from now. And next week, we're going to have the pre-release. So between the days of the 13th and the 15th, actually between the 14th and 15th to be more precise, is when we're going to be seeing the pre-release. And then you can buy the actual boxes, sets, and whatever as from the 21st onwards. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing some people doing the pre-release. Really don't remember what they're called. I do know they have a Twitch channel. If I do find out, I will let you know. So let's get this started. First and foremost, we're going to see that we have the whole set you can open up here. I'm just really scrolling through really quickly. It seems like Red has one extra card. According to sources this week, all of the cards have been revealed for the set. So those were the mono colors of the set. These are going to be the gold colors, which means I'm going to share 2 or more colors. I actually think that this is the only card that has 3 colors. Let me just open that up for you. The dark animations. Okay, so this is going to be the only 3-color card in the set, it would seem. And then, of course, we have the famous artifacts, which what it's all about, really and truly. And we see that there's only 1 land in the set, it would seem. These are the masterpieces. If you're lucky, you'll open one of these. The chances of opening one of these is quite rare. So if you do get them, do keep them, safe. And then we have this part of the set, which you will not see in the main set. This is just the Planeswalker decks. They will contain cards from the main set, and also these would be just solely for the set. They can be used in standard legal, so it's going to be fine if you just buy one of these decks and you use them in standard. It's going to be fine. None of them is going to be frowned upon, so it's pretty okay. I mean, at the end of the day, you get one of these cool planeswalkers. So this is a Johnny set, and then we have the Tezzeret. While we're on this side, I don't feel like scrolling all the way up. I'm just going to start from here. I'm just going to start with a Johnny Valiant Protector. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. So, loving the artwork. It seems a bit too clean for me, especially after what happened in the previous set where he appeared, which I believe was back in. I'm trying to remember the set actually. It's the one with the Greek gods and all that. So I'm pretty sure you'd remember which one. New players, if you don't know which one that is, I'm trying to remember. I know Nix's is one of them, so he might have appeared there. It's the first time we see Elspeth actually die. It's quite a sad story there. Some say she's not dead, she's stuck in the underworld, but we don't know until we go back into that side of the plane. So let's go back onto this card. We see this is going to be costing 6 mana in total, 4 of any color and 2 specific, which has to be 1 green and 1 white. And over here we have that the Planeswalker Johnny starts off with 4 loyalty counters. Now, those of you who don't know how Planeswalkers work, I'm going to just really quickly tell you that Planeswalker is like another player on the field. They have their own sets of magic. If you get a card which says these damage to target creature or player, this cannot be targeted. It has to specifically say target Planeswalker. So just be careful there. As much as we do refer them as another player on the battlefield, it is really not a player. It is a Planeswalker, as the card entails. So going straight to that, 4 loyalty counters means he comes in with like 4 life, and you can increase and decrease according to what you see necessary. Now, this card in specific has 2 abilities that give him a plus, which means you can increase. And over here, we can see that, ooh, is actually pretty good. White green is going to be quite good in this set from the little I've seen before I started the video, so do stay in tune for that. His plus two is put 2+1 counters on one creature. So you give a creature +2/+2. Now you're gonna see how good this is with a particular legendary creature card that basically you'll be seeing further along. Basically, just give you an overview that if a creature has a +1/+1 counter, then you can use it to tap mana for it. So this is going to be pretty good, especially with green. Green are pretty much ramp. You know, there's a lot of giving mana cards, creatures that act like mana cards. So and they're quite cheap to costly. So it's pretty good. So we're gonna go down to the +1 section. I'm just gonna highlight that over there. So the +1 is reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest of them to the bottom of your library in any order. So this is pretty good. So this is going to give me the creature I want as fast as I can if I'm running out of creature. You know that since he's pretty much a mid to late gamer over here, unless you're playing Ram Green, which gives you green mana creature, creatures that give you green mana and mana in general, what you're looking at here is possibly a slowdown. So basically, you might come to the point where you have no creatures to play. You want to play this, get a creature out quickly, and put him onto the battlefield. So that is something that is good along the way. What you'll be using mostly is this during the game. This might come up just in case you do need to fetch a creature really quickly if you're out of creatures or just to build your army. Only problem with this is if you're mana screwed or if you're looking for a specific card, it might throw it down to the library, reducing the chance of you drawing it. That being said, so we're looking at a +2 and a +1. We're going to focus on the +2 for a second again. Seeing that you come in with 4 loyalty points, that can go up to 4, 6, 8, 10. So in 4 turns, you'll be able to reach the -11. Now, -11, you would think, oh my god, that's quite a lot. Well, you got to look at this. Put X11 counters on target creature where X is your life total. That creature gains trample until end of turn. Now, that being said, if we just join a Johnny with our previous Planeswalker decks, which I'm referring specifically to Nissa, she gives you 3 life every turn. So this is not a bad thing if you put in Nissa from the Planeswalker deck. I'm not talking from the main set. You're going to be looking at quite a hefty creature to deal with, especially if like you have a creature with trample or something that green are quite known for. You're going to be looking at quite an impossible creature to deal with unless you have something that destroys target creature, which I have not yet seen a card like that yet. That is a Johnny, and we're just going to look really quickly into his set. I'm just going to go ahead and open that up really quickly, starting with the most obvious, if that's okay. The Tranquil Expen, and this is a land where it enters battlefield tap, give you green or white mana. So if you get this in your hand immediately, you just want to drop it in, so it comes in tap. So next turn, you want to untap it and start using it as normal land. So that's one thing to get out of the way. Very simple. Now this one, Inspiring Roar, is going to cost you 4 white, 3 and 1 specific, and it's a sorcery, so it's only played during your turn. Put a +1 counter on each creature you control, and that's pretty much it. So seeing that, I don't know how I feel about this card. I mean, forget that it's a sorcery. I mean, you only want to play this during your turn, I'm guessing, at this speed. But just 4 mana just to cover up your guys with 1+1. I mean, it's okay, it's good. And I see this being used, especially in a white-green deck, where you have everything just giving +1/+1 tokens, counters on it. So it's pretty okay. But again, I think 4 mana in total to spend for such a card is a bit of a slower. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. And we're gonna go for the Elf Soldier. Now, I'm a big fan of Elf, guys. Sorry if there's anyone who doesn't like elves. I'm a big elf fan. Seeing elves return in this set from, I haven't seen elves since Origins. So seeing elves come back is pretty good for me. A Johnny's Comrade. So it's 2 mana, 1 of any color and one specific. It's a creature elf soldier with trample. At the beginning of your combat, of your turn, if you control a Johnny Planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, okay. So every single time if you do have a Johnny, which does come a bit late in the game, as we've seen, and you have him at the beginning of every combat. If this guy's there, he's gonna start growing and growing. So imagine, let's just put a Johnny up for quite a split second there. So this is a creature we're dealing with every turn. Now imagine you get to put another +2/+2 counters on that creature. That creature with trample is starting to affect quite nicely on your side of the battlefield. So I like where this is going. Quite a good card. It's a pity it's only in the Planeswalker sets. I'm pretty sure this would have been really sought for if it was in the main set. So I'm not sure how much you get of these. Seeing that it's uncommon, you're gonna be seeing maybe one or two in the Planeswalker deck, so that's okay. And over here we have an enchantment. Now these are very important for white at the moment. So it's 4 mana, 2 any color, and 1 specifically green and 1 specifically white, as you can see up here. And as we can see, it's a Johnny's Aid. Johnny doesn't look so good here, so it looks like he does need help. When a Johnny's Aid enters the battlefield, you may search your library or your graveyard for a card named a Johnny Valiant Protector. You reveal it and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. Sacrifice this enchantment, prevent all combat damage. Damage a creature prevent all combat damage. A creature of your choice would deal this turn. Okay, so if a creature is attacking and you block it, you want to sacrifice this, sack it on that step and prevent that damage. I guess it's pretty good overall. I'm just trying to, have a feel for this because at the end of the day, it's going to be good to get a Johnny if he's not out on the battlefield. So that's a good part there. And this one's going to be preventing the damage from a creature. Actually, you can prevent it even if it's attacking you. So you let the damage go, sack this, and that's pretty okay. Again, this is very a Johnny. How can I say it? As it says, it's a Johnny Valiant Protector. So it's the Ajani from the Planeswalker deck set. It's not even the Ajani that is in the other sets, meaning that in the main set mainly. That's what I'm trying to go for. So it's okay. So we're gonna move on to the Tezzeret deck. Tezzeret is back, guys. Clearly, he had an agenda. For those of you following the storyline, I was really surprised when that came around. However, I was slightly disappointed because we have been contemplating whether Bolas was coming back, especially after Khans of Tarkir, well, Tarkir in general, the whole 3 sets. We've seen Ujin come along, and we know that how Ujin is about all. Well, Ujin was already like starting to lead a path towards Zendikar. So the minute we saw Ujin back, it's like, okay, we're definitely gonna be going back to Zendikar. Some problems gonna come up for sure. But however, I was expecting with the announcement of Tezzeret coming along, that he might actually be still under the influence of Bolas, the great mighty planeswalker, which is only one of him so far. Deseret would be this Tezzeret Masters of Metal would be, I think, like the 3rd or 4th print of Tezzeret available. Me personally, from the set, I have the one that came in the duels, so he's a pure blue and very much on artifacts. He seems like he's grown older and wiser for some reason. He definitely looks more powerful than he did, and he doesn't have the whole artifact arm showing too much, so it's pretty okay. I think that's his arm actually. It just changed positions. I really have to check that. Anyways, going solely on this, again, this is going to cost 6 mana like a Johnny, the Planeswalker in this set. This one is specifically 4 of any color, 1 blue and 1 black. Again, he's a Planeswalker. He comes in with 5 loyalty points, so 1 more than a Johnny, so he's a bit of an advantage there. However, he only has a 1+ sign, while the other 2 are in the negative. So let's see what +1 does. Is reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put that card into your hand, and the rest to the bottom of your library. Okay, so he has what Johnny has in regards to searching your library for a specific kind of card from the top of the deck onwards. However, Tezzeret is specifically towards artifacts, while Anjani is +1, which in the second field of his is for a creature. So they kind of balance each other out there. So that's okay. But this guy has a -3. Target opponent loses life equal to the number of artifacts you control, which is kind of harsh if you think about it, because knowing Tezzeret, he's going to be popping out artifacts with this first part and then make you lose life for it, which is only a -3. I mean, you can easily do that the minute it comes out, -3 if you have enough artifacts out. So it's a pretty good Planeswalker. I think I'm starting to prefer Tezzeret as a Planeswalker in general compared to other Planeswalkers than a Johnny. But then again, it depends how you kind of mix and match the things. So that's okay. Um, we're looking at a -8, which you can get this in 3 turns, unlike a Johnny's -11, which takes up to 4 turns. You gain control of all artifacts and creature target opponent controls. So this is pretty good. Not against a Johnny per se, because I don't see a Johnny playing any artifacts whatsoever. However, if you use this in a sorry, I'm yawning a lot. I just woke up like an hour ago, so still getting there, and I decided to just start off on the video. Anyways, getting back to this, so this is a pretty good deck. If you're going into Friday Night Magic and they're playing standard, not a draft booster, this is a deck you can just get off the shelf, and you know that it's going to be towards your advantage because people are going to start playing artifacts a lot. So you gain control of all artifacts and creatures. Okay, hold on, wait, I misread this. And creatures target upon control. So this is good either way. So either if you're playing against the Planeswalker, a Johnny set, or you're playing against anyone in a tournament, even against Tezzeret himself from another deck, so you're both playing the same deck, it is pretty good. And the thing is, in my local store, this has happened where basically people buy the box, they choose one, and they play the tournament, and the best person who plays the deck the best way possible. Of course, there's an element of luck and all that, but the strategy it boils down all to a player. Really and truly, different styles of play from different players is quite effective. Um, yeah, I can see this happening. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna say it for right now. Tezzeret Masters of Metal so far is a winner to me. Just alone, I'm pretty sure his deck is pretty good. Um, but again, as a planeswalker on his own, he's pretty good. You know, a Johnny, he's kind of a support towards it. You know, this guy can start doing stuff on his own, while a Johnny is a bit more like, okay, I'm here to help you. You know, that you can feel that Tezzeret has that power in this set. Moving on, so we have Tezzeret's Betrayal. So it is 5 mana, is a sorcery, and we have 3 of any color, blue and black. Destroy target creature. You may search your library and/or your graveyard for a card named Tezzeret Master of Metal. So that's the planeswalker we just saw. Reveal it and put it into your hand. Search your library. If you search your library this way, you may shuffle it. Well, you have to shuffle it, not you may. Sorry. And then we have some flavor text. You can't hope to comprehend the plans that are in motion, Tezzeret. That's quite interesting, actually. I wonder what plans he is talking about, because all I know is that in the story of Kaladesh, between Kaladesh and Aerther Revolt, is that he confiscated all of the artifacts, all of the inventions, and well, we don't know why he's doing it, and Chandra comes along and freezes it, frees everyone from this. Again, this is going to be very much like a Johnny's enchantment. This is just a sorcery though, very slow speed. I'd rather this had been an instant if I had to be honest. Okay, it's a bit expensive on cost. I do see why, because it's destroying a creature and also bringing Tezzeret from either the library or the graveyard. So that is decent in its own way. All right, so this is going to be the creature that is in support of Tezzeret. So Tezzeret's Simulacrum. Again, I'm not really sure how certain cards are, you know, read out. 3 mana, which is pretty good, while the other creature that's is in support of the Planeswalker was just 2. But again, artifacts are pretty cool. Artifact creature Golem. If you tap, target creature loses 1 life. If you control Tezzeret Planeswalker, that player loses 3 life instead. Now, please note that this is not specifying Tezzeret of the main set, so Tezzeret Master of Metal. No, he is specifying. Whoa, I did a big boo boo there. All right, let's just reopen that for a second. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. All right, so it's a 2/3, which is pretty good. I see why he's 3 mana now, simply because of the 2/3. Again, this is not specifying just for the Tezzeret that he comes in the set. This creature can easily be used for the Tezzeret of the main set that you find in boosters and all that. So this is pretty good. This is quite scary. Three life loss continuously. That kind of gives you the feel of black there. So I can see that this can do very well in a black deck, and you put in blue simply for a bit of control, and all of a sudden you have quite a scary deck to deal with, especially if you have Tezzeret in it. It's pretty cold, guys. It's pretty cold. Moving on to the next one, which is the Pendulum of Patterns. 2 mana, which is pretty decent. I like cheap costing artifacts. When Pendulum of Patterns enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. Okay. So a bit of life gaining there. And tap 5 mana of any color and tap this, sacrifice it as well. You see, this is why I don't get the whole. I don't know what Magic is thinking when it comes to this. So you're paying 5, you need to tap it and also sacrifice it. I think there is some cards, not in the standard, but in the modern and in legacy, that for every whatever you tap, some trigger ability. So I'm guessing that's why they put the tap in. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna sack this thing. It's always passed my mind, why do they put that there? But again, it could be because of trigger abilities. And you draw a card. I think it's quite expensive just for 5 mana just to draw a card. So I can see why this is a common. It's not going to be really, I mean, you're going to play it down for just 3 life and maybe have something to sacrifice artifacts as you go along. Definitely not going to be using this until it's late game, which I don't see. This is pretty much a backup call for if you really need to do something. So, and we're going down to the land, which is pretty much like the other land. It comes in tapped, and the minute it untaps, you can start using it for either blue or black. Again, if you get this, you want to play this in the beginning of your turn. So, you're wasting a turn putting down land, but it untaps and start using it. If this comes out later, it's really ineffective. So, that's pretty much where we're going with that. So, I don't know if you guys noticed there were a bit of comments on the side there. I don't bother reading that on the stream, but they're pretty interesting to watch. I'm not going to go through the masterpieces. If you want to go ahead and search at mythicspoiler.com, that's the website I'm using to view the set right here. You can go ahead and look at them. It's pretty cool. I like the artwork. I like the frame that they use. From my understanding, all of these come in foil. So do be careful because they do cost a lot of money once you get them out of the pack. So something that might cost you uh, 3, 4, $5. All of a sudden you have back the value, 10-fold almost, or 5-fold at the very least. So we're going to be looking straight up, actually, or I'm not going to bother going through the artifacts yet. Um, so the way the Mythic Spoiler website works is it puts the Mythics first, then goes down to Rares, and eventually goes down to, well, they haven't really organized it that way this time. It seems like we're looking at, I don't know how they actually sorted their cards out this time. It's usually, it goes by either mana cost and then rarity, or vice versa, rarity and then mana cost. But it seems like they just put in as they saw fit. Okay. So again, beautiful artwork. I don't know where to start with this. I think I'm going to be starting with white. I'm going to be going down column by column because that's the best way to do it. Just going to go ahead and open these up. Again, I'm really, really excited for this set. I wasn't so excited about Kaladesh, to be very honest with you guys. I was not actually too happy with seeing artifacts come along, because the last time the artifacts came along, it was a bit too much. I believe that came out in Phyrexia last, and it was quite a drag. Alright, I think I'm just going to open up to there. I'm just going to keep a note there because all these tabs are open. And let's go. So we have our first creature, which is the Exquisite Arcangel. Is that how you say it? Okay, so 7 mana, 5 of any color, 2 specifically white. It's a creature angel, flying. So it's a 5/5 flyer. If you lose the game, instead exile this creature, and your life total becomes equal to the starting. Okay, so this is a pretty good backup card if you want to start over. So, unlike the other angel that came out in Kaladesh, this is pretty good. This I can see this becoming very useful, and also, I can see a total loop here. So if you exile it. So the thing is this, it's not a legendary creature, which means you can have 4 of this in your set while you're playing. Um, Again, you don't want to do that simply because the mana curve would just increase drastically just with 4 cards costing 7 mana. But again, if you're playing green-white, you definitely would consider putting at least 2 of this, from my understanding. So that's pretty good. We're going to go through Schramm Senior Artificer. Okay, so it's a 2 mana, 1 any colored, 1 white, legendary creature, Dwarf Advisor. Alright, I love the artwork, by the way, guys. Look at that dwarf potential looking over the miniature set of Kaladesh City and just probably just plotting something. And he is actually saying something here. As this conflict grows, it gets harder to prevent the city from breaking down. How much longer can we keep this machinery balanced? That is machinery, right? Okay. Again, he has quite a good point. I mean, there's it broke into civil war, and you have to come up with a plan. And what is his plan as a card? Whenever you cast an aura equipment or vehicle spell, draw a card. This is pretty good because you're gonna have that draw power, and I can see him coming in with blue, especially, or red. So white, red, white, blue. White, red, especially. I think you guys are gonna love this. It's a pity he's a legendary creature to a certain extent because, okay, he'll become OP if he wasn't to a certain extent, but having just one of these guys every time you just put them down, you're drawing a card. So you're starting to get the cards you want, playing better. So this is a pretty good creature. And I think that's him again, actually. Yeah, he is, because there's his name. Sram's expertise. So again, he's giving an advice here, but this time it's a sorcery. So we're looking at 4 mana, 2 of any color, and 2 specifically white, sorcery speed. So it's pretty much only played on your turn. Okay, so you get to create 3/1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without playing its mana cost. So this is pretty good, actually. I'll tell you why, because, okay, this is at sorcery speed, and that's really important to keep it at sorcery speed, even though it's a rare. However, you're going to play your next card for 3 mana or less at a freer cost. Well, you're not going to use any mana, so you're going to use, let's say you're down to 4 mana and you actually do this. You're going to get 3 creatures out, and they're specifically artifacts, which is very important in this set. And then you're going to just go ahead and, play out a card, any card, for 3 mana or less for free. So you're going to be playing 2 cards, this card and another card, if you simply have 4 mana. So this is a pretty good card to have in your hand in early of the game. Okay, turn 4, granted, but it's a winner. You're putting in creatures, you're having that turn 4 feel already. It's important to always have right tools for the job. This one is for picking my teeth. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have Aerther Inspector. He's a creature dwarf artificer, and he's 4 mana. Common, so it's not something you're going to be wanting to pick up. You're going to see a lot of these. If you're going to buy a bunch of boxes, probably you're going to have a good 6 of them running around for sure. He is okay with Vigilance. I can see why his mana cost is so expensive because of Vigilance. And when Aerther Inspector enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. And whenever Aerther Inspector attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, you create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact onto the token. So it's pretty okay, despite his 4 mana. I mean, 4 mana, we don't like turn 4 cards. We like turn 3 kind of spells most of the time. Depends what you're playing, of course. I see this being played quite good in a white-green deck in the future, especially with the previous set of Kaladesh. I see this working pretty well because you're going to be building up your energy, which was a feature that came out in Kaladesh specifically, and this one's going to create a colorless creature. Again, white right now is doing really well, like all the other colors. I don't have a specific favorite color at the moment. I only have a specific race, which unfortunately is one again, is the elves. So elves would be my first, and vampires, but again, we're not going to be seeing vampires for a while. And let's just close that up to move on to the next rare creature, Solemn Recruit. It is a 3 mana, 1 specific and sorry, 1 of any color and 2 white. It's a dwarf soldier with double strike. So it's a 2/2 double strike. I see where the rarity comes in. I mean, that's going to be dealing 2 damage as a first strike first, and then a second additional 2 damage as normal combat. So it's pretty good. By the way, guys, one thing that I do need to refer to, if this creature comes blocked, the second damage is also given to the same creature. So it's 4 damage. The first 2 are first strike, and the other 2 is normal combat damage. It doesn't go on to the player if the creature dies. I just want to clarify that because I had that problem, because in the very early stages of Magic, it used to be you deal 2 damage to the creature. If that creature dies, the other 2 damage keep going on to the player. Apparently that only works if the creature has trample now. So if it's blocked, it's blocked. It takes completely of 4 damage accordingly. So we have double strike, that's what we were explaining over there, and then we have Revolt, which is a new mechanic, it seems. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1/+1 counter on this creature. I'm not going to say its name simply because it's annoying. And so Revolt is a new mechanic word. However, we have seen this mechanic before. Not quite sure again what it's called, but I do remember having a mechanic that if something leaves the battlefield, something triggers. So it seems like they've given it a mechanical name this time. It's called Revolt. So it makes sense because we're trying to go against this whole control system, and we are currently doing the best we can. So at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield, okay, so this is pretty much a permanent thing actually. So every time something leaves the battlefield that you controlled, any permanent, this guy is gonna grow. So you want to start looking either for bouncing out spells or having those tokens dying, simply so this guy can start to grow. So I see where this is going to become useful. So, especially if we're gonna be seeing the set from what was it called? The Emrakul set, I like to call it Eldritch Moon and all that, where the cards kind of transform, because it tells you to, I believe it tells you to exile them and then bring them back transformed, so that's leaving the battlefield coming back. I do believe they did correct it, however, and to just simply transforming it without actually saying leaving the battlefield coming back. I think actually Origins had that thing with Planeswalkers. Get exiled, comes back as a Planeswalker flipped, more than the other cards. But if that was the case, again, I do need to go back and revise it. This would actually work out pretty well. Okay, looking into the next card, we have another creature, Dwarf Scouts. It is 3/1, 2 mana, and he is a rare. And Aerther Minor. Whenever this creature attacks, you gain 2 energy. That's pretty good. I can see this working now with green more, simply because you have that creature which is 2 mana, 1 colorless, and 1 green, and every time he deals combat damage, 2 energy come in. This is even better than him. He's a bit, he's a bit harder to find probably because he's on a rare scale. Because every time he attacks, you gain 2 energy. That is pretty much like a card that is a mixed color flying. I'm trying to remember which one. I think it was the white green, that white green or blue green. I'm not really sure. From Kaladesh set, every time he attacked, again 2 energy came in. Again, I'm just trying to reference this off memory. I might be mistaken. So there is a lot of combinations that give you energy, and it's going to be good because this guy is unlike other creatures where it's if you attack, then you can pay energy. This is immediately you can pay energy as a cost, and then you trigger this ability where you exile this creature, then return it onto the battlefield under its owner control. I see where you're doing it there. Okay, so that's pretty nasty, man. I mean, if you have enough energy from the previous creature that we've seen, I'm not going to get it up, but from the previous creature we've seen, whenever something leaves the battlefield, it's starting to grow. So this guy's going to be going bouncing in, bouncing out, bouncing in, bouncing out, quite happily. So, I love to read the flavor text, by the way. And gremlins in the wild feed on. Wait. Gremlins in the wild feed on nucleus of pure ether, which are also prized by miners. Yeah, that's pretty okay, I think. Could do better due to cold weather. Sinuses kicked in, so yeah, not being able to voice act so properly. Okay, so going on to Call of Unity, we are looking at 5 mana, 3 of any color, and 2 white specific. It's an enchantment, and we're going to be reading what it says. Revolt again. So we've already explained what Revolt does. So whenever something leaves the battlefield and comes back in, I'm guessing. So at the beginning of your end step, put a Unity counter on Call of the Unity. If a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, creatures you control get a +1/+1 for each Unity counter on Call. Okay, this is pretty good actually. So apart from the fact that you have the whole bouncing in, bouncing out thing, which you can easily make a deck of bouncing in, bouncing out, where you're gonna frustrate your opponent with it. It's like it comes in and goes out, it comes in and goes out, and triggers all these abilities. This thing starts to build up Call of Unity with a bunch of counters on it, which eventually creatures you control get that +1/+1. The only problem is that probably we're going to see something in green or in red to destroy targets, enchantments, or artifacts. So we're going to definitely see something from those colors taking these off because now they're a bit troublesome, I guess. So again, they have the flavor text here. I'm really disappointed they didn't put it here. So the leaking spire stands for liberation from the consulate control. Again, this is really hard for me to read. But yeah, it kind of follows the story where there's this whole rebellion going on. And again, we have Consulates Crackdown, where it's an enchantment as well, also having the same mana cost as the previous enchantment. That's 5, 2 specifically white of the cost. Enchantment. When this enchantment comes into the battlefield, exile all artifacts your opponent controls until this thing leaves the battlefield. This is pretty good. I love it. I have myself personally built an exile deck, so this is going to be really good for standard. So I can see this replacing some cards with creature cards, you know, because you have a lot of exile target creature, exile target creature. This is going to be good because you're going to exile all targets artifacts. Again, you're going to be looking at this is going to be replacing probably actually once the Zendikar set rolls out of standard. This is going to be replacing that 4 mana colorless card where you exile all colorless creatures or creatures with 4 and above attack or something. Again, or 4 mana. I'm not really sure how the spelling goes, but this is definitely going to replace that specific card simply because it's going to exile all artifacts. So no matter what it is, it's going to be exiling it. So PNLR, I'm not going to do a female's voice, man. The workshops are silent. Our creations have been seized. They have killed what made us alive. No, that was a horrible. No, that was horrible. I can't do a female's voice right now. Restoration Specialist. Okay, so that's 2 mana, is uncommon, and creature dwarf artificer. That's pretty good. So for 1 mana, and you get to sacrifice this creature. Return up to 1 target artifact. Sorry about that. Return target artifacts and up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. This is pretty good. You can easily do a mono white deck with how white is coming out. Mono has become strong again, and I'm really happy with that. Especially when it comes to white. White has been the first color I've ever played with. Then I moved on to green. Then I moved on to black. And then eventually I moved on. Well, red and blue I never really liked. And then eventually I kind of started collecting the sets again because I used to give them away to my friends. And pretty good. Pretty good. So, Trotters Arrest. So it's 3 mana, 1 white specific over there. Enchantment. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls until Trotter leaves the battlefield. Again, this is going to be exile stuff. So, but this is going to be targeting 1. Again, this is going to be very lovely with my exile deck. I'm just looking at these cards going like, oh yeah, baby, I know where to put you. And you're going to work so brilliant to annoy my opponent every single turn. So exiling is something I love to do because destroying creatures, putting them into the graveyard, he can easily fetch them back if he has the right cards in his hand, especially if he's playing cards from Innistrad or Eldritch Moon, where he brings creatures back, you know, especially one of those zombie decks, which I have created as well, and they're pretty nasty to get away from. So exiling is the key nowadays. Okay, so did I Harpooner? Okay, so it's a creature with 3 mana, one white specific creature, dwarf warrior. Revolt. When this creature enters the battlefield, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, destroy target tap creature and opponent control. So yeah, it's pretty okay. So what you want to do with this one is you want to start bouncing it in and out like the others. So, because the problem with Revolt, this one is not permanently there. So it's not if a permanent, it has to be specifically when it enters the battlefield. And if a permanent then left the battlefield, you have to kind of be careful how to trigger these things and how to build your deck when you're doing it. So you're definitely looking at something of bouncing in and out constantly on the battlefield. I do have a friend of mine, Pony, who he loves to do this bouncing and bouncing out thing. I can imagine him building one of these decks, and it's going to be so annoying if he does manage to come up with a way to get this. It seems there's even been hunting down here. Moving on. So deft dismissal. So we're gonna. Oh, there's Gideon there. Gideon, Jura. Deft dismissal for 4 mana. It's an instant. That's pretty good. And why are you an instant? Because when this instant deals, well, this instant deals 3 damage divided as you choose amongst 1 2 or 3 targets attacking or blocking creatures. So specifically attacking or blocking. That's the thing. And I can see why 3 damage because Gideon has those flexible swords that he controls with his mana flow from his arm, and there are 3 of them. So you see, I see where it's going there. So he kind of interrupts there. It's like, shabam. You know, cut you, slash you. Look, he'd slice that open actually if you look in that artwork. And you can see the beautiful ether that's flowing through them to make them function. It's an okay card, I guess. 4 mana is a bit too much for me. Um, I don't think I'll be seeing this played in my set unless I'm playing white black. So yeah. Moving on to the next creature, Catbeast. Um, Feldyar Guardian for mana. It is an uncommon 1/4. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return that card onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So this is going to be helping out the bouncing in, bouncing out thing. So again, you can see that you can just build a wide deck of bouncing in, bouncing out, and I'm calling it bouncing in, bouncing out. This is really good because you're gonna have quite a lot of things happening here. Okay, a lot of triggers with this. Think this is going to be quite an interesting set. I'm looking forward to it because it's definitely a new way of playing Magic. Brings the new strategies always. Okay, moving on to this one. So uncommon for 5 mana. That is a bit weird, and it's an enchantment aura. Aerial modifications. So again, this is you're going to be enchanting a creature or a vehicle. I can see these coming onto vehicles more though. As long as the enchanted permanent is a vehicle, there you go. It's a creature in addition to its other types. Enchanted creature gets a +2/+2 and has flying. So this is good simply because you don't have to crew anymore. That's the thing with artifacts, with vehicle artifacts, you have to simply, tap one creature, to crew it, and then you're gonna crew and crew and crew, and you're losing that stability of defense. These things are gonna be quite good. Again, you might want to look at just building a vehicle deck and perhaps a bit of green to support your mana cost and get this into it and play for copies. But again, um, you're really not sure how this is going to fit in quite well. As much as it's a good card, and I see why it's around common, it's pretty good because you're not wasting any creatures. But then again, I mean, to be honest, I'd rather crew a vehicle for it to become a creature rather. I mean, this okay. It's gonna give you flying and +2/+2. I can see where the whole cost is coming for it. So I can see like this is gonna cost 2 mana. This is gonna cost 2 mana as well. Put in white just to give it a color, and there we go. It's 5 mana. That's how we do the cards. So yeah. Again, I mean, you can even see the comments are being said here. Um, that it is a bit cool, but again, it's not that. I mean, how can you play that? It's gonna be hard. So we ended on that one. Let's just open up the rest of the white. I hope you guys are enjoying this video and the commentary at the same time. You're having a quick sneak peek, and a feel of where these things might be going. I mean, some people just kind of hover over these and don't really go into detail of what's really going on. Some of you might actually be intense like my community here on the island, where basically they go in so much depth and starts, coming up with ideas of how they fit into decks and all that. It depends what type of person you are, what type of player you are. For me personally, I like to collect these. I do like to play, but again, I'm no expert in playing, and the only way I do know how to get around these cards by commenting is simply because I've been playing Magic for the past 7, 8 years, and again, I don't play as competitively, so you're gonna be seeing me in one of these big tournaments, unless my friend again Pony drives me crazy and he decides to take us up to one of these big Grand Prix tournaments or something, where you just pay in rather than have Planeswalker points to be able to go in. But again, we'll see. So airdrop. Air nouns. how do you say that? Whatever. It's a creature, Dwarf Scouts, 5 mana. Again, sorry guys for the pronunciation of the card. Some of these cards are a bit hard to pronounce for me. Simply because, admittedly, I am dyslexic and it is kind of hard for me to get around this. So, Dwarf Flying Revolt. When this creature enters the battlefield, the permanent you control left the battlefield, you gain 5 lives. Okay, so again, you're looking at the bouncing in, bouncing out. However, it's only when this creature comes. So a creature leaves, this comes in. That's how you have to look at it. So yeah, you're this unfortunately because of its mana cost, more than bouncing a creature, what you're really looking at is if a creature dies here due to battle, due to your opponent saying sacking it off. So and it's a 4/3 flyer. So we're looking at quite good. I wouldn't play more than 2 of this in my deck, to be frank. And it's good if you have the bouncing in, bouncing out system, especially like we've seen that one when it enters the battlefield, it exiles a permanent and then brings it back onto the battlefield. Then this is pretty good because you're using that system. So I guess 2 of this and 2 of the other one kind of help and complement each other. But again, the mana curve would go way far off its balance. Um, so yeah, we're gonna have Earnout, Admiral, Admiral. Okay, so it's a human pilot. We love pilots, by the way, for crewing our vehicles, and in fact, this is what it's doing. For 4 mana, uncommon, it's a human pilot flying. It's the first human pilot I've seen, at least in the white set, because we've had a lot of dwarfs going around. This creature has flying 3/1, pretty good. Vehicles you control have flying, so you don't even need to crew a vehicle per se. Immediately, vehicles have flying. This is a pretty good card to have if you're having one of those vehicle white red decks. I did build one myself. It's not the best of decks to be in, to admit, but this is pretty nasty if I had to put this in, you know. Again, it's 4 mana. You kind of want to consider putting in 2 or 3 of this just to get things flowing. But you definitely want this because creature flying, vehicles flying, especially certain vehicles like the car, which is like 4 or 5/1, something like that, flying with haste. Not referring to this car, I'm referring to a car that came out in Kaladesh. Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I like this. I like this. All right, so we have to put in a bird in here simply just because of seal booster. Not gonna go into detail. Not even gonna bother saying its name. It's just a 3 mana 1 white specific. Is a bird. It's flying 2/2. Done. And again, we have one of these quick, you know, beefy creatures. Dwarf soldier, 3/2. You can easily build a dwarf deck now. With if a dwarf comes in, blah 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 thing. So it's okay. No special abilities. So you want to avoid these cards if you're building a deck, so to speak. You're gonna definitely find these in um, your sealed. You're gonna want to get these out in your sealed draft if you get them because they're 3/2 at the end of the day. Quite heavy creatures. Okay, turn 3, but again, we all see turn 3 eventually. If you don't have 2 or 3 mana in your hand when you're starting, I mean, you're a bit of a disadvantage. Let's face it. Okay, so now we're coming on to some of the pacifism stuff, so to speak. Caught in the brights. Yeah, I can see that. It's like, what are those headlights onto this creature? Okay, so 3 mana enchantment aura. So you're gonna enchant a creature specifically. An enchanted creature can't attack or block when a vehicle you control attacks. Exile enchanted creature. So this is pretty good because you're gonna just I see why they put this artwork now. It's like, okay, you're gonna shock them up because you have a vehicle and it's flashing its light, so the creature kind of freezes, can't do anything, and eventually when the creature comes into the attack phase, simply because this is going at full speed, bam, done, dead, exile. Loving this simply because I can see my exile deck getting better and better with these cards. I'm looking for, and this is a common, which means I'm going to be seeing more of these when opening my booster boxes uh, in 2 weeks' time. So I'm going to be really excited for that. Conviction. Okay, we have another enchantment aura. This time for 2 mana. It's a common. And again, you're enchanting a creature. Enchanted creature gets a buff of +1/+3. And it also has that you have the tap white, return conviction to its owner's hand. Um, I like where this is going because if we can just pull up one of those things with Revolt, but specifically, hold on. Sorry guys about this, I just want to prove a point. Okay, so this one, for example, right? I'm marking at discards. The Harpooner Revolt. When this enters the battlefield, every permanent you control left the battlefield, this then destroys target creature. So it is a permanent, so it's not a specific creature. So this one is a permanent too. So you put it in, put it out, put it in, put it out. You have the whole bouncing thing. Okay, it's gonna cost you 1 mana and 2 mana, so a total of 3 mana constantly. But again, it's pretty decent if you want things to start working fast. So this is something you want to have in that deck if you're gonna have the bouncing in, bouncing out deck. And I swear I'm gonna call it bouncing in, bouncing out deck if I manage to get my hands um, onto that card, Magic the Gathering creator. Again, I can always go on to roll d20, and actually create the deck to just have a feel of how it would work. Yes, you can do that, guys. By the way, it takes a bit of work. It does take a bit of time out of your uh, normal scheduled day, but trust me, it's worth it. Anyways, moving on to this one. Down Feather Eagle, 5 mana, flying. It's a common. Now, whenever this creature enters the battlefield, creatures you control get a +1/+1 and gets vigilance until the end of turn. So again, this is something that I would not play per se. Simply because, okay, it's cool to have that kind of quick play advantage and everything, but again, this is not doing anything permanent for you, except it's a 3/3 flyer for 5 mana. I try to avoid these cards personally. I don't know how certain people I don't know how certain people would go for these. Again, but in drafts, these can actually make the difference, to be honest. So you never know. So yeah, this is a card I wouldn't even consider in the bouncing in, bouncing out deck I'm gonna be creating for myself. Ah, man, this is so exciting! I can't wait. So Alli Evasion, 1 white mana. It's an instant. That's good. That's pretty good. Instant, and you get to choose one. You can either choose target creature you control gets a +1/+2 until end of turn, which is okay. That's great. Or you could choose return target creature you control to its owner's hand. So again, this is pretty good because it gives you an option what you want to do, whether you want to trigger the bounce in kind of thing and then pay the mana cost to bounce it back out. Um, if you know what I'm trying to talk about. So basically, you're returning the card for free, and then you're going to be summoning it back out. So you want to just summon something really quickly, and you want to summon something that has that trigger ability of if something left the battlefield, then this happens when this creature comes into the battlefield. So that's what you're trying to aim at, because a permanent did leave. It was itself at the end of the day, and it's coming back in. So you're looking at something really good. Really, really good card so far in the white deck. And of course, we have this guy again. So, Odious Inflictorator. So it's a 3/1 dwarf for 2 mana. So this is something that's really good. Um, this creature cannot be blocked by artifact creatures, so you have kind of that advantage there. I would seriously have put this as an uncommon with that kind of power for this set. But again, looking into future sets, if artifact creatures kind of fade out and you're going to be playing this card, yeah, I can see it just drop down to a common quite easily. So yeah, that's quite good. This little critter can turn all of you into scalp in under 30 seconds. Come on, who wants to be the first to go? Try and stop me. That was a flavor text, by the way. All right, countless gears. We're looking at 2 mana creature, dwarf, artificer. Again, this is pretty good. We're seeing a lot of artificers all of a sudden come out, which is good because there's a couple of cards from Kaladesh that trigger on artificers specifically. It has Revolt, which is the bouncing in, bouncing on technique that we're talking about. When countless gears, well, this creature enters the battlefield, If a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, you create a 1/1 servo artifact creatures. Now this is the thing. I don't mind servos. They're 1/1, tokens, and I'm a token guy to be honest, since I used to play elves back in the day. But these guys just putting in 1/1 servos, I rather had them top tiers to be honest. 1/1 flyers. But again, I think that would have been so OP for the set. Um, so yeah, I can see where this is coming from. And again, this is something I would put 2, 3, even 4 in the bouncing in, bouncing out set. But again, I want to like focus on the rare cards if I get them, if I get a whole set to play. So this is really good. And then we have finally, last but not least, of the white set, we have the Decommission, where we have 3 mana. It's an instant, so that's pretty good. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. There we go. So you can play against white itself, just in case white starts to become dominant in this set. And then we have Revolt as well. That dominate display. If a player permanent you control had left the battlefield, you also gain 3 life. So this is pretty decent in the bouncing in, bouncing out set, especially if you're dealing against a white deck or an artifact deck, which we're definitely going to see in the standard now. So this is something that you do want to consider solely for this. Solely for this, if you're going to draw it out on a booster on a Friday Night Magic or something. But again, if you're building a proper standard deck, this is something that you're going to be definitely wanting to function around. Revolt decks, the bouncing in, bouncing out Revolt decks are going to definitely be something. So we're going to be looking at that for sure. Okay, so we finished the white sets. I feel really good about the white set so far.